Alright, what's going on everyone? Today I'm going to show you how to upgrade the standard Dimir controlled Challenger deck into a Pioneer deck. We will not exceed the deck's retail price with our upgrades, which is around $30 USD or so. So the interesting thing about this deck is it's a control deck with no important synergies. I mean, I guess you could say that it has some snow synergies and that it has one snow card, but basically the entire deck is just removal, counter spells, board wipes, card draw, and win conditions, right? This is just a blue-black control deck where nothing gets powered up by something else, right? It's not like Final Adventure where the deck needs to play adventure cards because that's how the deck works. Or the Dimir Rogues deck, which plays tribal rogues and needs mill cards, right? None of that matters with this deck. There's no synergy. And what that means is we could theoretically literally replace the entire deck and it would function the same. We just need more powerful spot removal and more powerful board wipes and more powerful win conditions. So my goal today is just to get as much power as possible out of our $30 budget, but there will be plenty of room for improvement in the future. And because this upgrade is so linear, you can kind of pick and choose what you want to upgrade from this guide. Actually, you can kind of do what you want because, again, it's just so linear. So let's start by taking out 2 Parasitic Grasp for 2 Go for the Throat. The Grasp has very limited use, so it would be good in the sideboard for like human aggro decks, I guess, but the Go for the Throat can destroy a much larger portion of the metagame. No reason not to play it. It's pretty good. Next, we'll take out 3 Power Word Kills for 3 Fatal Push. So both of these have some restrictions. The first is worse than it might look because there is a Tribal Angel deck in the meta, but Fatal Push is great because it is very strong against aggro decks or just early game creatures. And if you can trigger Revolt, which will have ways to do that, 4 converted mana cost is like 90% of the metagame, right? Decks in this format are fast, they're well optimized, so Fatal Push is going to hit way more things than you might expect. Next, I want to take out Blood on the Snow for 2 Deadly Cover-Up. This does make the snow lands in the deck effectively useless. We have 1 more Blood on the Snow, but we'll be taking it out. So the snow lands, useless, they do look cool, and they're harmless, I guess. But the cover-up is just such a good board wipe. Not only does it do it a turn sooner, which can be very relevant against aggro, but you can collect evidence, and we're going to have ways to get big stuff in our graveyard. We're going to have some, I don't know, maybe some cycling typhoon nonsense. But collect evidence 6 might be easier than you expect. And when you do that, you pick a card in the graveyard and you exile all of them from the opponent's hand, library, and graveyard, which can sometimes just completely destroy a deck's ability to win, or at least drastically reduce its ability to win. Very nice. Similarly, I want to take out 2 Crippling Fear for 2 Extinction Event. Both of these are trying to be like sort of one-sided board wipes, but the -3/-3 just isn't powerful enough in the late game. It feels really bad to top deck Crippling Fear if your opponent has a bunch of big stuff in play. It just doesn't do anything. But the cool thing about Extinction Event is not only is it a very low cost board wipe for mana, but also, did I mention we're going to be doing some shark nonsense? So a lot of times our entire board is even costed, so naming odd with this is it's usually pretty one-sided for us. So now we awkwardly have 1 copy of each of these, so I think we should take out Blood on the Snow for negate. These aren't really comparable, I just want to increase the number of counter spells, and for the same reason I want to take out Crippling Fear for 1 Spell Pierce. Both of these counters are almost always useful as most decks rely on some key spells. Even the most popular aggro deck right now is a spell-based prowess deck, so these are basically always useful, and when they're not, you can always replace them in the sideboard with different counter spells or removal or whatever. Continuing with counter spells, I want to take out 3 Saw It Coming for 3 Sinister Sabotage. Both of these are 3 mana counters, and they should probably be 3 steps ahead. This is the more popular card, but it is very expensive right now. But the problem with Saw It Coming is it really telegraphs that you have a counter, especially if people know your deck. I mean, there's no surprise. It's in the name. They're going to see it coming. And also tapping 2 mana on turn 2, that just kills you sometimes against aggro decks. Not great. The Sabotage, on the other hand, gives us some filtering with Surveil, and that's relevant as we have multiple uses for the graveyard. We have cards with flashback, we have collect evidence, and we're also going to have delve. And that's because we're going to take out 1 memory deluge for 1 dig through time. I'm a big fan of memory deluge. It's clunky at 4 mana, but I always love casting it. But dig through time can often be a 1 mana spell that digs 7 cards deep for 2 cards. We've added some surveil so we can fill the graveyard. We're going to be playing tons of counter spells and removal, so this can be very cheap, very fast. And since it's an instant, we can always cast it for like 4 or 5 mana at the end of our opponent's turn, right? Ideally, we want to pay as little as possible, but at end of turn, it's fine to just pay whatever for this. If you have 5 mana and 2 cards, that's reasonable. Next, we're going to take out 2 Thirst for Discovery for 2 Deduce. Both of these are just card filtering, card draw, and the Thirst is fine. It is sometimes played in Pioneer, but Deduce lets us draw 2 cards overall, and the important aspect of this is the second card draw is on a clue token, and sacrificing that is going to turn on Revolt for Fatal Push. Our Fatal Pushes are more powerful when our card draw comes from clues. So I think Deduce and Thirst for Discovery are very comparable, but Deduce works better with our Fatal Pushes. And I think you could also probably potentially take out 1 Memory Deluge for a 3rd copy. Kind of on the fence about it, but I think that might be not terrible. I mean, you could always put Memory Deluge in another deck because they're amazing, but for now, 2 Thirst for 2 Deduce. That's what we're doing. Moving on to win conditions, we're going to take out 2 Graveyard Trespassers for 2 Shark Typhoons. Oh yeah, these have gone down in price quite a bit. These used to be, they used to be like $10 to $15 each, but they're only $1 or $2 now. Ooh, that's very, very exciting for me. So yeah, the Trespassers, they're okay in like mid-range decks. They have some grindiness. They can gain and drain. They can impact the graveyard. They can also put pressure on. They deal 4 damage per turn, right? If you're attacking. So Graveyard Trespassers, great in certain types of decks. But this is a control deck. This is like a all-in. I mean, most of our entire deck, we have like 5 win conditions. This is every single turn, we're countering and killing. So Graveyard Trespasser just doesn't quite make a ton of sense for this deck. Shark Typhoon, on the other hand, if you actually play it, every single non-creature you play is going to make a shark, and the power and toughness of that shark is going to be equal to the spell's mana value. So play a 4-drop, make a 4/4. Absolutely game winning. It will win the game for sure if you can cast it most of the time, and so long as it doesn't get destroyed. But you can also cycle it, and you're going to do that more often than you think. Against an aggro deck, it is absolutely okay to cycle this, get a 1/1, chump block with it, get another card, dig for a board wipe or a spot removal spell. I want to take out the 3rd Trespasser for a Torrential Gearhulk, and this could arguably just be a 3rd Shark Typhoon. I think that's probably fine, but I do like Torrential Gearhulk quite a bit. It is a 6 mana 5/6 with flash, so you can cast this at instant speed as an ambush blocker. Your opponent attacks, surprise, have a 5/6, but when you cast it, you get to recast a spell from your graveyard for free. So what this can allow you to do is not only have the ambush blocker to kill something, but then cast a removal spell or a counter spell to 2-for-1 the opponent. Actually, 2-for-1 isn't even correct. It's a 2-for-0. You just get to kill 2 things. Just be aware, one important interaction is Memory Deluge. If you recast Deluge, you're casting it for 0, so it doesn't actually do anything. But with 1 Torrential Gearhulk, I don't find it to be too big of a deal. Moving on to the mana base, I have 1 change, and that's to take out 4 Ice Tunnels. 4th round, Catacomb. We don't need the snow lands now. They just don't do anything for us. We don't have blood on the snow. So having a land that can enter untapped is preferable. This is pretty low on the list of powerful dual lands, but all the blue-black dual lands are very expensive. These ones are under $2 each, and I do think they massively improve the mana base, but going forward, you might want to consider looking at some of the other dual lands in the format for a bit of mana consistency. Moving on to the sideboard. First, we have 2 Ray of Enfeeblement that I want to take out for 2 Ether Gust. This card is one of the most played sideboard cards in this archetype. It's the 2nd most played card after Kalitas, which is like $5 each, so we're not going to be adding that. But these are very good, incredibly powerful against aggro decks. Definitely worth having a couple. I also want to take out One Saw It Coming for one Mystical Dispute. This is a very powerful counterspell against blue decks. It costs 3. You don't have to target a blue spell, but if you do, it only costs 1 mana, which is great in counterspell wars. We also have 2 Mischievous Catgeist that I want to take out for 2 Notion Thief. The cat just isn't playable in Pioneer. I don't think any deck plays it. That's just an old standard card. But Notion Thief is great against decks trying to draw a lot of cards, like control decks or Phoenix. Phoenix really likes to draw. It turns off the ability for the opponent to draw cards outside of their draw during their draw phase, and you can flash it into play in response to a draw trigger to basically counter it and draw a card for yourself. So that's pretty good. And finally, we'll take out 2 Bloodfile Purveyors for 2 Chrome Host Seed Sharks. This is great to add in games where you need to sideboard out spot removal, and it allows you to generate creatures when playing counter spells, like in blue control matchups, for example. Also, one of these probably should be Kalitas, but like I said, they're like $5 to $6 each at the moment. We have a $30 budget, so spending 6 of it on one sideboard card, even though it's played in like 95% of decks, it's just too large of a percentage of our budget to justify on one card. But also, it's only like $5 to $6, so you could probably pick one up, and it's very good. It's played in every deck for a reason. But yeah, that's it for our upgrades. It should basically do the exact thing that it already did. This isn't going to do anything new. Everything that you were already doing with the original deck, you're going to be still doing that. You're just going to be doing it more efficiently. You're no longer playing an old standard deck. You're now playing a Pioneer deck that does the same thing, basically. So yeah, that's it. I will leave a link to the upgraded deck list in the description below. And if you want to see gameplay, I always post a gameplay video a day or 2 after the original, so look out for that. Subscribe if you want to see it in the future. I will also try to remember to come back and add a link, though I do sometimes forget. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, everyone. I hope this video was useful, and I will see you in the next one.